Hi, Chris Smith here again from Storytelling Schools. Today I want to tell you the story of how the first vaccine was developed. I'm telling you this story from my home here in Gloucestershire, England, and the place where this vaccine was developed is just down the road from me in a village called Berkeley. I've been there, there's a museum there where you can learn all about it, so let me tell you that story today. Once upon a time, about 240 years ago, that's 4 of my lifetimes, there was a boy called Edward Jenner. And he lived in a village down the road from here, and as he got older he thought, what shall I do when I grow up? Maybe I could be a farmer, maybe I could be a miller, maybe I could be a baker. But he noticed in the village many people got sick. And some of them got sick with a terrible illness called smallpox. The young boy watched as their skin blistered with pussy boils. He watched as they got fever, and he watched as many of them died. It was a horrible disease. Maybe 1/3 of the people who got sick died. And he thought, what I'd really like to do is help them, do something about the sick and help them. I want to be a doctor. And so he studied hard, and he studied, and he studied, and he went to university, and with time he became a doctor. And he set up practice in his village, and one day he was sitting there when a milkmaid came in. She said, "Doctor, I'm worried, I've got pus and boils on my fingers, and I'm worried I've got smallpox. Have a look." He looked, he said, "Oh, don't worry, dear. It's not smallpox, it's cowpox. You're a milkmaid, you probably got it from the milk and it'll pass in a week or two. There's not much danger in cowpox. You'll be fine." "Oh, good," she said, "because I know, we milkmaids know that with cowpox, once you've had it, you can't get smallpox. You're safe forever." "Really?" said Dr. Jenner. "I didn't know that." So he thought about it, and he decided to test whether it was true or not. He persuaded the son of his gardener to do a test with him, a dangerous test. You wouldn't do this today, but in those days, they had a go. The boy's name was James, and Jenner got a needle and dipped it in the pus from a cowpox boil, and he scratched James' hand with it. And soon James got a little bit sick with the cowpox boils, and then a week or two later he was better again. No harm done. Then came the dangerous bit. Jenner took another needle and dipped it in the pus from a patient who had smallpox. Then he scratched James' hand again to see what would happen. Would he get infected? And he watched and he waited and he waited and he watched, and James was fine. Jenner thought, maybe that works. I'll try it again. And he tried it again and again and again, 23 times with other patients, and every patient was fine. Once they had been infected by cowpox, they were protected from smallpox. Something happened inside their body that protected them. He didn't know what it was, but it looked like it could help them be safe from that terrible disease. And so he travelled the country talking about his research, explaining the ideas and trying to persuade people to develop this idea so that everybody could be protected. And it was a new idea, and like many new ideas, it took time to be adopted. But in the end, they developed a vaccine and they spread it around the world. And now, today, there is no more smallpox in the world. Dr. Jenner, who invented the first vaccine, spread the idea to others who found a way of making lots and lots of vaccine that could protect us all against smallpox. Today, the world is free from smallpox, thanks to Edward Jenner, thanks to the scientists, and most of all, thanks to James and the milkmaid, without whom Dr. Jenner could not have made that discovery. So that's the story. It's a true story. Like all of the stories we use, there's lots of things you can do once you've learnt the story. So here's my list of things you can do. First of all, you could learn to tell that story so that you really know what's in it in a detailed way. And if you do that, you might want to have a little story map to help you tell the story. Here's mine. 240 years ago, we're telling the story. That's 4 of my lifetimes. Jenna's thinking, what shall I be when I grow up? He sees the case of smallpox. 1/3 of the people die. He wants to help. So he studies and he studies to be a doctor. And then one day a milkmaid comes in and he says, you got cowpox. She says, good, that'll protect me from smallpox. So he thinks about it and he does a test with James, scratching his hand with cowpox. And then James is fine and he gets a little bit sick, but then he's fine. And then he scratches his hand with smallpox and James is fine. He tries it 23 times. And in this way, they invent the first vaccine. And today, the world is free from smallpox thanks to Dr. Jenner and his experiment. So that helps me remember the story. Then, I might do a little bit of stepping of the story also to help me remember. Remember, stepping is when you do a physical movement and maybe a word that helps memory. So let me try this one now. So first step might be 240 years ago. The second one, what shall I be? Doctor, let's stop smallpox. The next one, he studied and studied and studied. Next one, oh, that's good. If I've had cowpox, I won't get smallpox. Next one, let's test it. James is fine. Now the world is free from smallpox. Something like that. Those movements help me remember the story when I'm telling it in the way I told it to you, and then you can tell it. So if you want to learn it, that's one way to do it. Hear it, map it, step it, then speak it. You might want to talk about it. What's in the story? What can you learn from it? What can we learn about vaccines and health today? You might want to act it out. There's some nice scenes in there between the milkmaid, between the gardener and James. You could make up, you could improvise it, you could do many things like that. Lots of things to draw and paint in the picture. You could write a song or a poem about all of it or part of it, and you can research more about vaccines and Jenner and smallpox if you want. Also, you could write the story, or you could recycle the story and start to write stories about other vaccines and other cures that have been developed for different diseases in different ways. And that is just some ideas for what you could do with that story about the vaccine. And for me, it's a story of real hope, because if as a species we can get rid of a terrible disease like smallpox, and we've got rid of many diseases like that, then sooner or later I'm sure we'll manage to do the same thing for the COVID virus. With the science and the knowledge and the experience we have, we will be able to survive this pandemic, and in the future, 100 years from now, somebody like me will be telling the story of how we overcame the COVID virus. But for now, we're all part of the story, and this story now is for you. So I hope you enjoy it and take comfort from the success which Dr. Jenner started 240 years ago.